This is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community. Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and it's my goal here on the podcast to introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. Our title sponsor for this episode is Bringing Local Back. Remember when your community could turn to a local TV station or newspaper for the latest updates and affordable ads? Those days may be fading, but the need for local connection remains. That's why we created Bringing Local Back, a game-changing platform that restores local visibility and advertising power to your community. It's more than just tech. It's about driving engagement and creating new revenue for your chamber. Ready to see the future? Visit bringinglocalback.com to schedule your demo today. This is the future of local commerce. Our guest for this episode is Tara Lea. Tara has been involved in the chamber industry at the local, state, and regional level for the past decade. With a passion for leadership and a commitment to making a difference, Tara currently serves as a Vice President of Community Affairs at the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce. In this role, she orchestrates programs and initiatives aimed at cultivating the next generation of leaders and empowering individuals to enact positive change in their spheres of influence. Prior to the Nebraska Chamber, Tara was the President and CEO of the Fremont Area Chamber of Commerce. In that role, she managed the strategic, fiscal, and programmatic goals for the Fremont Chamber of Commerce. She also served as a spokesperson for the chamber through their region. With almost 600 members in the Fremont Area Chamber, it's the sixth largest and one of the oldest chambers in the state of Nebraska. Tara started her chamber career as the president of the Ralston Area Chamber of Commerce, a 275-member organization dedicated to creating business and community vitality. She has a very active role in creating the Ralston 20-year development plan. Prior to joining the chamber industry, Tara was employed at the University of Nebraska Lincoln Professional Golf Management Program and as the educational specialist recruiting students from across the country to make Nebraska their home. Tara has served as a board member for a variety of civic and government organizations. She was elected to the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce Executives and Mid-America Chamber of Commerce Executive Board of Directors by her peers and is currently past chairman of both organizations. Tara has been recognized for both service and professional leadership through the Midlands Business Journal 40 Under 40 Leadership Award. She has earned her bachelor's of journalism and broadcasting and has a master's in educational leadership from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Tara is also a 2021 graduate of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce IOM program. Tara, we're excited to have you with us today here on Chamber Chat Podcast. I'd love to give you a moment to say hello to all the Chamber champions who are out there listening and to share something interesting about yourself so we can all get to know you a little better.
Well, thanks, Brandon, and hello to all my chamber friends across the country. So excited to be on the podcast today to share just a little bit of knowledge that I've probably ripped off and duplicated from some of my friends across the state over the years. My bio is very long with some big words that ChatGPT helped me make up. So thank you, Brandon, for sharing that. But a big thing that you see in there is Nebraska is mentioned many, many, many times. Born and raised in Nebraska, very proud Nebraskan. I think something interesting about myself, and I'm going back a few years here, but when I was a senior in high school, I was both a Nebraska cow queen and pig queen in the same year. So I got to go around the state of Nebraska to fairs and community events and hand out ribbons and just be a promoter of shorthorn cattle and the pork industry across the state. So I think my love for Nebraska and kind of ending up here in the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce role probably started way back in high school.
Man, talk about something to aspire to. Cow queen and pig queen. Wow.
Just the royalty of Nebraska. You know, I still get the crown out once in a while. No, I'm just kidding.
And we've got her on the show today, folks. I love it. Well, tell us a little bit about the Nebraska Chamber. Obviously, it's state chamber, but give us some perspective, the size, scope of work, how you guys are involved working with other chambers, staff, just to kind of get our mindset straight as before we go into this conversation today.
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned for my bio, Brandon, I've kind of climbed the chamber ladder here. I like to say I started a small chamber, went to a mid-sized chamber, and now at the Nebraska State Chamber, it's an entirely new beast and animal compared to the local chambers.
Yeah.
We have about 1,000 members here at the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, and our focus is obviously statewide. So we want to make a huge difference from Western Nebraska all the way to Eastern and North and South. We want to cover the whole state. So as most chambers do, we do a lot of lobbying for our businesses and the communities across the state. But my role, which is new, is really to work with the local chambers across the state of Nebraska as well. So I kind of have that inside track and know what a weird job that we have. So I can be that person to new folks who come into a chamber role and help do some training and education for them. I can also, if chambers have issues or events or things they have questions on, we're the resource for them, trying to do a lot more meetings with the local chamber folks. So in a way, we're making all the local chambers an extension of the state chamber. And I think that's just going to make the entire state a whole lot stronger as we move forward with that. Here at the Nebraska Chamber, we have 12 employees that are here in the office. And then we just started a new initiative a couple months ago, which is also my baby, called 6 Regions, 1 Nebraska. And we've hired 6 navigators across the state who then are kind of an extension of the chamber as well, working on some regional projects in each of those communities and those areas.
Man, that you guys are busy. I mean, this
We
is
are.
this is awesome. I love especially your role, this new role that's been created, and seeing the local chambers becoming an extension of the state chamber and having the 6 navigators. I mean, Nebraska is not a small state. I mean, you get in the East Coast and you get states you can drive across in 30 minutes, but
Yes,
not so much in Nebraska.
right.
So
And
it makes a lot of sense to have your delegates somewhere,
yeah,
throughout the
well, it makes a
state.
huge difference because even for the 12 of us, each of us trying to get out to the western side of the state, it's 8 hours across the state. So we were not spending nearly as much time out there as we should have been. So, yes, to have somebody right there in the community to always be a resource has just been huge for us.
Yeah, no, that is fantastic. And really, that could be a whole podcast episode there. But our focus for our conversation today is going to be around creating conveners. So maybe some of that comes into the conversation today when we talk about, helping to lift up some of these chambers, get them trained and educated, but ultimately creating conveners and becoming one of those, pillars in that C, the 3 C's of chambers. So we look forward to diving deeper into this topic as soon as we get back from this quick break.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rose.
And we're the founders of At My Community, a mobile app that can be customized to meet the unique needs of your Chamber of Commerce.
When we started At My Community, we envisioned a tool that would help communities thrive by simplifying communication and enhancing engagement. Chambers of Commerce face unique challenges, and we're here to help you tackle them.
At My Community helps the Evergreen Area Chamber of Commerce to create an app that keeps tourists informed even when their office is closed. They provide 24/7 access to local business information, which helps support the local economy and community engagement.
In Rocky Mountain House, we helped Rocky Chamber create an app with dynamic itineraries and digital resources for tourists, increasing local business engagement. The app has become an essential tool for the community, promoting events and boosting visibility for local merchants.
Today, we empower more than 200 chambers of commerce, campgrounds, and RV resorts to streamline communication, informing members about events, sharing business updates, and providing a digital hub for the community, all in one convenient app.
When you partner with At My Community, our team works closely with you to create an app that meets your chamber's unique needs. As your community grows, our app evolves with you. We are here to ensure you engage effectively with your members and streamline your operations.
Schedule a demo today at atmycommunity.com.
We can't wait to meet you.
Attention, all Chamber of Commerce leaders. Are you looking for a powerful tool to help you manage your chamber? Look no further than Chamber Nation. Their comprehensive platform provides all the features you need to streamline membership management, host events, communicate with your members, and provide amazing services to your members. Plus, their expert team is always available to provide personalized support. Don't miss out on this opportunity to take your chamber to the next level at a price you will truly appreciate. Visit richardscalendar.com to learn more about Chamber Nation today. All right, Tara, we're back. So as I mentioned before the break, our topic for our conversation today is creating conveners. So as you hear that topic and the approach to your work, what does that mean to you? How do you approach creating conveners in your
Yeah.
day-to-day work?
So that has been just a passion of mine the entire time I've been in the chamber industry. I mean, even at the local level, it's so important to bring together not just your members and local businesses, but make sure they're still working with city government and county government and, make all of us working together to move things forward in the right direction. So now in my role, literally, I get to do it every single day. So I mentioned the Six Regions, One Nebraska initiative. I also run our Leadership Nebraska program. So I know we have a ton of leadership programs across the country. Each of them has its own awesome element, but a lot of them are very similar as well. But that's really where I have the opportunity. We have about 350 alumni members who we do events for throughout the year. And then each year we take a class of between 30 and 35. Those folks are from all across the state. And then we go visit different communities across the state. So at that time, it's all about those introductions, bringing people together. It's amazing to see even years later, folks that are working together because they met at an alumni event or they were in class together. So I really think that's just to form those partnerships is huge, and anything I can do to make that happen is just a true passion of mine.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about that. As you take these alumni, you divide up, you go out and visit others. What does that look like? What do you provide? What's the curriculum, if you will?
Yeah, great question. So again, if you have a local chamber leadership program, you're probably meeting one day a month or something along those lines. For Leadership Nebraska, we meet 3 days a month. So it is a huge time commitment for folks. But we start at noon on a Wednesday and wrap up on noon on a Friday. And the whole goal, obviously, is there's a leadership development component, which is huge, but it's also the relationship. So we are making sure the folks in this class are getting in front of the mayors of communities, or just the key people that are in that community, senators, whoever that might be, and then the top business leaders in those communities as well. So they have that resource and they know them. And then we take a lot of behind the scene tours as well. So Nebraska is a large manufacturing state, so we get to see some really cool things that are made right here in the state of Nebraska. Each month we're in a different part of the state. So we do Southeast, we do Western, Northeast, Central, Lincoln, Omaha. We hit kind of some of the hot spots across the state. And again, just to showcase, it's usually focused on the top hitting issues within the state right now. So obviously this year, childcare comes up in every single session. We go to communities and see what kind of facilities they have or how they're kind of battling the childcare shortage crisis across the state. Housing has been huge for a number of years. It's fun to go see some of the small homes and or the things that are being created, in these communities to make sure they're covering the housing they need. And then just workforce. So issues in Nebraska, but also issues across the whole state. We are not going to find an answer. Unfortunately, I wish we had that crystal ball that told us, hey, here's the answer to all of this. And if someone listening does have that, please call me and tell me what that is. But it's just nice to see what other folks are doing. So then the people in the class can take those ideas back to their communities and help build and try to solve some of these issues that we have across the state.
Even if somebody has solved it, it's probably only solvable in their community, and then
It
whatever
could be.
adaptations need to happen in your own, right? So the thought came to me as you're explaining how the program works with these visits to these manufacturing facilities. Just getting out and seeing the childcare place, the workforce, and the housing issues. How is this all working towards the goal of creating conveners?
Yeah.
Or would you say that's the goal?
Absolutely is the goal. And I think it happens every single session because someone will meet someone that then they can go work with or push a project forward because they had the opportunity to convene and meet with those folks while they were on a tour, listening to a panel of speakers, even just the leadership development. It's getting those folks in the class stronger and more knowledgeable so that they can then go back to their communities and bring everybody together, convene the people that need to be in the room to push things forward and make things happen across the state.
Absolutely. I was thinking just the perspective that's opened up to these individuals to go through the
Yeah,
program, I think is so valuable in creating conveners to be able to look at a problem from multiple angles and say, yeah, I know somebody over here. Let's bring them in. And maybe that's getting more into the catalyst phase, that other C. But I think being a convener is so important to be able to have those connections, bring them in, have that perspective to approach things from different angles, really.
absolutely. And as a state chamber, we just really want to see all of our local communities advance and grow. And so that is obviously huge for us is when we can bring folks together and loosen the right people so then they can go back and make an impact within their community.
Absolutely. So I know we're talking a lot about the leadership in Nebraska. Can we talk a little bit about how you work with chambers too? Because I want to know,
Absolutely.
because I feel like there's some convener development going on with those chambers
Yes.
too, as you work with the local chambers. What are those interactions like, and what do you do to promote them, to support them, to train them? What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's something we've really focused on the last couple of years as well. We have no better value than our local chambers across the state. They are huge resources for us as the Nebraska Chamber. So we want to make sure folks are loving their job and wanting to continue working in the chamber industry. Obviously, that's kind of an issue we've had across the state as well, is folks kind of get burnt out or whatever issues might arise. So we really want to focus on what can we do to make their lives a little bit easier. So the Nebraska Chamber Association is our statewide group of chamber executives, and we meet every other week on a Zoom call where we'll bring in experts in the chamber field. Maybe sometimes it's just a social media expert, an HR expert, just people who can come in and educate our local chamber executives so that then they can be a resource in their local areas and their local communities. We also do 2 conferences a year where we get as many people together as we can. It's usually 2 to 3 days, and it's just pure professional development education, but also that awesome time to be with your colleagues who do the things that you do day in and day out, and they understand how this job is, so it can be a resource for folks moving forward, just to have that person to go to and talk to when needed. As far as spreading the word, the chamber newsletter, we love to get local chambers in there. And one of my dear friends in Fall City and I, Amber Holly, started a podcast a couple of months ago called Chamber Chatterboxes, where we just interview local chambers and they talk about what makes their community unique, some of the events they have going on. And we really encourage folks across the rest of the state or region to go and visit those communities in our podcast. So not nearly the level of the chamber chat yet, Brandon, but we have goals to aspire. 12 episodes in, someday we will also be at 309.
Awesome. Awesome. I love hearing Chambers podcast. So this is, going through COVID, that was kind of the vision that I saw is with the pivoting. I set up a page on my website called the podcast pivot, right? So
Yes.
during COVID, chambers still needed to get their messaging out, and some did, Zoom calls, and they used other tools where they could, put out video, but podcasting, when people are at home, when they're doing different things and they can listen and be able to be educated while they're doing other things, is so important. And I think the world we live in today, where everybody's so busy, that's the way to reach people, is through a
Absolutely.
podcast. So
And
love to see
drive
you
time
guys
in
are
our
doing it.
state. So, yeah. Yeah. I
Yes.
was gonna just drive time in our state too. People in their car a lot,
Yes.
driving throughout Nebraska. So it's a nice time to just pop on a podcast and use that windshield time for good.
Absolutely. Instead of just listening to radio or whatever. I mean,
Right.
music, yeah. We all have those songs embedded in our mind already, so we don't need to keep reinforcing. We can, broaden our minds. But
That's right. I could sing a little bit for you if you want to. No, I'm just kidding. That'd be terrible. Everyone would turn this podcast off right now if I started that. But
I was just gonna say how great you sounded, with the microphone and the podcast setup. So maybe we'll leave it right there. But
perfect. Sounds good.
Right. So you guys meet twice a year for a conference.
We do.
That's kind of unique. I see most state associations, state chambers are doing, once a year. So do you know what was behind that to do it twice a year? And is the turnout similar for both, or is one more supported than the other?
Yeah, so we have a fall conference every year, and that's been going on for as long as I've been in the chamber industry. And we kind of rotate that across the state. So every region has a chance to to be host and show off what they're doing. That is our bigger event. That definitely gets more chamber execs there. And then in the spring, we do what we call mini institutes. It's just a 2-day session. It's typically either centrally located in the state of Nebraska or Omaha, Lincoln area. And that started, gosh, probably 5 or 6 years ago, just because people wanted more. They wanted to get together more often. They wanted more education opportunities. And that one, it's a little less attended, but again, it's just a 2-day event. So sometimes people coming from further distances, it's, can I justify the day and a half compared to the 3 days? And so we try to keep the prices really low on that too. We know there's not a huge budget for professional development, a lot of small chambers. So we keep it under $100 for both of those conferences and try to provide as much value as we can while folks are together.
Yeah, that's great. I think for those listening who may be on a board for their state association, just, take some ideas, see if there's value in your state to do something similar. But from Tara's perspective, it's all about strengthening Nebraska. So don't compete too hard.
Right.
Nebraska,
don't get too good. Go ahead and do a few things, but don't be as good as us. No.
Right.
Just kidding. The whole country will be better if everybody works together. So it's all good.
Absolutely. I love it. I love these approaches. I mean, you guys it seems like you're doing things right to build up leaders, to turn them into conveners that are going to strengthen their communities, be that extension of the Nebraska Chamber throughout the state. I love the strategy that you guys are making. Is there anything else to the approach that you guys are taking that's worth noting? Again, for those listening who may be taking what they hear today back to state association or up to their state chamber and say, hey, can we do this? Or, have you thought about this? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I know I've mentioned it, but there's so much value in having someone at the local level. And I think when I came from a local chamber to the state, that was the biggest piece that was missing. It was, we were expecting our members to come to us all the time. And even at local chambers, we do that too, where it's like, we're hosting these events. If they're members, they should be coming to our events, coffees, ribbon cuttings, whatever it may be. At the state chamber, we were hosting 3 events a year and expecting folks to just show up. Well, that's not a great way to do business. That's not a way we find out what our members need and want. So statewide, I think the best thing we did is have these local navigators in communities where they can get out and hear from each individual member, or even if they're not members, just communities across the state. Local chambers, I think, can do the same thing. And I've really stressed this to my local chamber friends, is that you need to meet one-on-one with as many members as you can. We're here to make the business community a better place. And if we don't know what the issues are that our business leaders are facing, there's no way we can do that. So that one-on-one time that you spend with your members is so valuable and so important. And even if, no solution comes out of it, just the fact that your business member feels heard is huge for them. And when that invoice comes around to pay again, the following year, they're going to remember that time they spent with you. And it's going to be a lot easier for them to write that check instead of, debating if they continue their membership or not.
Yeah. And I feel like we see this modeled from the U.S. Chamber, where they have representatives that come and they're going to state conferences and they're going to local chamber, events and being seen, being present, taking note on what are the issues of importance, and being able to take them back to the U.S. Chamber, say, okay, let's focus on these things. So it's
Absolutely.
a great model. It seems to be working for them. So why not do it in Nebraska or in whatever state you're in right now? So
exactly. Brina, the other thing I was going to mention that we do is, I know when I was a local chamber exec, the lobbying side of things was not my cup of tea. I didn't follow it very well. I didn't understand a lot about it. I can easily admit that. But so what we do at the state chamber also is during the legislative session, we're giving our local chambers kind of cheat sheets that they can then share in their newsletters or meetings with their government affairs council, where we're basically like handing it to them with the cliff notes. Like, yes, here's the big things that are happening during the session or even happened this week at the state capitol. Feel free to do a social media tweet that's similar to this, or, whatever it might be. Just really getting those resources to the folks that aren't comfortable with it and don't, I would never want to do a newsletter and put something that I wasn't 100% sure about. And now we're just taking the guesswork out of it for the local chambers and be here, serving on a platter. Like, here it is. Go ahead and just copy and paste. And then if they have questions, our government affairs folks here at the Nebraska Chamber are amazing and more than willing to go out and do lunch and learns and things with the local chambers as well with their businesses so that it kind of takes some pressure off that local chamber leader. And the experts can come in and really talk about what's going on in the Capitol.
Yeah. And advocacy should be such a huge part of each local chamber. And we all know chambers typically run understaffed. So to be able to put in the time individually to do the research, take an opinion, to say what's best for our business community, that's a full-time job, really.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
To be able to have that support from the state chamber to say, here it is. Now, I would suggest for everybody to still read it, look at
it,
make sure
yes.
but yes, use that as a resource to promote and put out there and call it your own, say in a partnership with the state chamber, this is what we're standing on. And it's hard to go wrong if you take that approach. So great point.
Nobody goes to school to learn how to be a chamber professional, and we wear so many different hats that it's just nice when we can have, help out there along the way to make us look better. That's always a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, Tara, as we start to wrap things up here, I wanted to ask on behalf of a listener who's wanting to take their chamber up to the next level. You've shared some great tips and strategies, but what might you offer for a chamber that's trying to accomplish that goal of taking their chamber to the next level?
Yeah, don't be scared to try new things. I think we kind of get in our little rut of we've always done it this way, so we're going to keep doing it that way. And I think that mentality hopefully is changing a little bit as we've all had to reinvent ourselves, especially through the COVID years and things like that. But I think just go ahead and try that event. If you're not sure if it's going to work or not, do it 1 year. If it flops, who cares? Don't do it the next year. If you are looking to change some initiatives within your city, your community, go talk to the mayor, go make those relationships happen so that you can really push things forward. But you can't be scared to try new things because we're ever changing and continuing to show our value to our members and our communities. So take the leap and do whatever fun event or initiative that you're hoping to achieve.
Absolutely. That's great advice. As we look to the future of chambers, I always like to see, what does your crystal ball say? How do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
Well, let me get my tarot cards out here. No, I'm just
That's
kidding.
Right.
So I could not be more excited for I feel the future of chambers are going throughout our country. I mentioned before COVID, like we all did a rebrand, right? We were worried, what are we going to look like when we come out on the other side of this? We can't do things the way we always did. I truly believe chambers are stronger now than we were 5 years ago. I think we're just going to continue to grow. I do see some more partnerships happening, whether it be regional chambers forming or more economic development and chamber folks merging. I think that's probably the way things are going to go, but I think we're only going to be stronger because of that. So I think, yeah, I have no doubt that chambers will continue to play a huge role in their communities. They will be the people who know everything about what's going on and the place that folks go to find the latest and greatest information. And I can't wait to be part of the ride. And it's so fun where I'm at now because I not only get to see it at the state level, but I really get to see it happening in the local communities as well. And that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I love that vision of the future. And I am going to plug just our previous episode with Angela Wilson. She talked about negotiating contracts. So if that is the future with chambers merging and taking on more of an economic development role, give that episode a listen and just really get into what you need to be considering as you approach contracts with these different partnerships. But I love that vision of the future. So thank you, Tara.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I wanted to give you a chance to share any contact information for listeners who may want to reach out and connect with you, learn more about how the Nebraska Chamber is approaching different things or what they can do to strengthen their chamber. Where would you point people to reach out and connect?
Yeah, I am always available via email. It might take 2 emails like it did when Brandon tried to set this up today, but I promise I will try to get back to you after the first one. My email is just TLEA@nechamber.com. Again, TLEA@nechamber.com. Or I'm always available. You can call me at 402-480-6918. 402-480-6918. We also have a great Nebraska Chamber has a website that's great. The Leadership Nebraska has an awesome website. I would also, if you're interested in a leadership program, would follow Leadership Nebraska on Facebook. We're always posting the fun things that we're doing. So feel free to give that a follow and steal some ideas from us as well.
That's perfect. We'll do our best to link all of that in our show notes for this episode to make it easy to find all the places and links. But Tara, this has been great having you on Chamber Chat Podcast. I love the energy and enthusiasm and the insight that you've brought to us today, and appreciate you spending time with us. Thank you so much.
Well, I so appreciate the opportunity, and all the local chambers and state chambers keep doing great work. Really proud of you, and can't end without saying, go Big Red.
If you are a chamber professional, please subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. When you subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast, new episodes will show up in your podcast app each week as they are released. If you're finding value in this podcast, please leave us a rating and a review in iTunes. But most importantly, please share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues that are in the industry.